Hello, our friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family. So, guys, Lake Mead, nation's largest reservoir, has reached its lowest water level on record. Period. Period. This is horrible. This is such a wake up call. Again, places like Las Vegas and Phoenix, there's so many places where right now we have vast numbers of people, millions of people living in an environment that's unsustainable if not for public water supplies. And again, we've heard that water is a valuable commodity, obviously. And we've heard from certain, agencies, certain groups that perhaps the average person in public cannot understand the concept of climate change. But everybody can understand no water, no life. Yeah, absolutely. So here they are blaming climate change on lowering Lake Mead's water levels to a record low. I want to point out that we are getting very close to a point there that might look like what's happening in Puerto Rico. For the first time since the U.S. Drought Monitor began operations in the year 2000, Puerto Rico's southern region has experienced extreme drought. Meanwhile, severe drought has spread in the interior and the metro. There, right over here, is El Yunque. El Yunque is a amazing place of biological diversity. It is a rainforest, and I've been there. I've been blessed to be able to go to Puerto Rico 5 or 6 times. And I love the island, especially love also that whole area into the Virgin Islands. It's just, for me, that's a paradise. I love that weather. I love that atmosphere. I love all the prana, the chi, the ki. There's so much life force there. It's unbelievable that you could be on an island like Puerto Rico and not have water. To have a location that has a tropical rainforest, and yet you don't have water over here along the southern coast or at extreme levels down around Ponce. It's just unfathomable. How could this be? You're surrounded by water. Yes, the Caribbean, it's right there. It's right there. How could we not have water? Well, it is a big problem. And I will share this with you.
It is devastating to see what's happening here in a U.S. territory where more than 3 million U.S. citizens live, and it's about to get worse. There are about 180,000 customers. Customers means households or businesses that are beginning this morning to experience water rationing for 48 hours at a time. That means no water coming out of the faucet for 48 hours. The government has said that could go up to 72 hours. Low-income Puerto Ricans having to spend money in bottled water. We're talking about the elderly and the vulnerable and people who are ill having to count on others, or they themselves having to carry jugs up flights of stairs, businesses that are impacted that can't offer their services. On top of this severe drought, the worst in 120 years of recorded history, there is a history of mismanagement, of underfunding, and yes, of corruption as well. The infrastructure for the water distributed across the island has been devastating. According to experts, more than 60% of the water supply is lost through leaks. What that has meant is that this is not the first time that Puerto Ricans are experiencing this unreliable access to water. Tens of thousands of Puerto Ricans have been experiencing it for months. People are desperate. Yesterday, the chair of the Water Authority's board resigned. The governor is facing backlash and protest. People are saying that the government is not and has not been doing enough.
Yeah, absolutely. I was doing a little digging because as I was looking into this situation, it got me thinking about, oh, well, for one, it got me thinking about the war going on again in a totally different part of the world. And here you see a question. You're talking about blowing up civilian power plants and bridges and also desalination plants, which is horrible. Again, confirmation from some sources that literally our own government, along with another small country's government in the Middle East, is obviously doing things that are not helpful to humanity as a whole. And again, all these governments around this world are maybe not equally being so destructive, but yeah, they're all complicit in some way, shape, or form. Al Jazeera talking about a retaliatory strike on Kuwait's massive power and desalination plants. Half of Kuwait's water supply completely gone. This is terrifying reality. Think about that, because when you look at it, there's a lot of desalination plants in the world. There's not in Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico doesn't have desalination plants, but over in the Virgin Islands there are. This is curious, when you start looking into it, what's going on? How about in the Middle East? There's tons of desalination plants. In fact, you have 400 plus desalination plants in the U.S. Spain has 900 plus desalination plants. Algeria, over 20. It goes on and on. There's a way to do this. It can be done. The problem is mismanagement. Yeah, that's a big problem. Corruption. Yeah, that's absolutely a very, very big problem. And just no will to. It's as if, this area doesn't have enough significance, maybe not enough things like oil, which when you look to the Middle East, how are these other countries doing the desalination plants? Well, it's because they have oil. And we don't really need to even be on oil or gas. That's the reality. It's already out there that there are other forms of energy, literally free energy, that's been suppressed. There are tons of patents on free energy. Again, this is choices being made by the governments of the world that they themselves are completely corrupt. And again, nobody has to be suffering. It's just because those with money and power want to hoard more money and power. And again, when 120-year drought, do you think that's really natural? I don't. I really don't. That's just me. I don't think it's natural at all. I think, again, it's targeted. It could be targeted in different ways, too. It could be diverting resources to places where they want to divert it through weather control and weather modification programs. And it could also be targeting, like take Cuba. Cuba's been so ostracized, and you're looking at, in the case of Cuba, another island that has rolling blackouts and literally a collapsed grid. When you look at what's happened in the past, and when we look at previous natural disasters, hurricanes, it's fascinating to see that the same pattern of corruption shows up time and time again. The same pattern of money being allocated, and then it's not used for certain things that's being allocated for. It disappears. All that money that disappeared from the Pentagon back when Rumsfeld was talking about, well, we got trillions missing, we don't know where it went. You stole it. You stole it, meaning the politicians stole it, along with their friends and the corporations. They stole the money. And they do the same thing when there's hurricanes like Irma and Maria that end up, there's countries like the U.S. that allocates money to help the situation, and they get stolen along the way. This is the reality. The only problem we really, really have here is a governmental problem, because ultimately the governments are criminal. They are criminal. They are just nothing but, it's just a good old boy network that takes care of themselves. And, there's all these different types of common fraud schemes that happen from ghost applicants. We've all heard about that. Deceased people getting, paid things, but, they haven't maybe been alive for 50 years. Inflated cost and kickbacks, again, charging us $100 for a nail, that type of thing. We see this time and time again, duplicate benefits, and so many more. This is, again, as I was saying to the AI, a completely planned and orchestrated perfect storm, because they know this is a way they could create resources for themselves. Amplify a hurricane, steer it into an area, you're going to need a massive cleanup project, billions get allocated, but very little of that actually ever gets spent to rebuild. It all gets siphoned off into Ponzi schemes and literally feeding the politicians and other corporate entities that are behind all this. So, there's so much systemic failure versus total orchestration. It's a little bit of both. Again, it really is a little bit of both. But again, we need to change the system. This system is beyond fixing. It really, really is. We have to think of new ways to do things. So, this is a wake-up call for us, because we might find places like Vegas and Phoenix are on 24, then 48, then 72-hour rationing. And how will we handle it in those areas? Any thoughts, Sweden?
Yeah, I mean, it's all so very, very frustrating. And what I have been noticing lately is people are starting to be proactive when it comes to the lower level politicians. I mean, that's where applying pressure seems to be helpful. And really, to me, I don't know what other modalities we can use to push back against this. I mean, the only reason we uncover it is because we are hoping that someone might be able to apply pressure on just the right nerve to actually get something done. It's going to take all of us. It's going to take all of us to be proactive at the lower levels of our government. Look at law enforcement, look at the mayor. I mean, they're the ones who are receiving these funds from other places. There's got to be some better accountability here. Otherwise, we're just throwing all of our money down the drain, or I'm sorry, into someone else's mansion and their, gold plated toilet seats. We really need to do something. It's just so frustrating. And I think the power is still within us. We can. We're in a position where we still can do something, and we should.
Yeah, I think again the answer is again concepts like no more federal government. Breaking it down. Maybe we even break down the states, and the only governance is on a county level, because we could more effectively govern at a smaller level. Because also we tend to have differences in opinion on what the money should go towards. So, again, we understand there are very big differences between the left and the right-leaning states and territories. So maybe we shouldn't have such large structures. Start by eliminating the structures. We could save money there, and break it down into smaller units till we get to a point where we could have a system and a governance that's really of the people, by the people, for the people, because we have not experienced that in really, I think, hundreds of years, if not thousands. I think it's all been an illusion. And really, again, it's all been about keeping the power, the money, the resources in the hands of the few. But the masses have to be the ones that force the change.
We have to press on a nerve. We have to push on those lower levels. We need to do something while we can.
Absolutely. Please do share your thoughts. How would you go about changing this reality? Much love. Thank you for your support. Join us on memberships and also on Patreon. And if you need to make an appointment for energy work, for Vedic astrology charts, and just life coaching in general, it's evolutionaryenergyarts@gmail.com. Source bless. Namaste.